At a wedding we attended, my husband spent the entire evening glued to his female coworker, dancing and laughing while barely noticing me. When someone asked if he was married, he casually replied, "Not really. It doesn't count when she's not interesting." The laughter filled the room. I stood there, frozen. That was the night I learned what humiliation tastes like: champagne and lies. My name is Raina Holt. I'm not here to tell you a love story. I'm here to tell you what happens when love dies in public under fairy lights, surrounded by strangers who treat your pain like entertainment. The wedding was the kind that makes you forget bills exist. Gold drapes hung from 20-foot ceilings. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbows across marble floors. A string quartet played near a fountain that probably cost more than my car. Everything sparkled. Everything except me. We'd been married 8 years. 8 years of matching coffee mugs and shared grocery lists. 8 years of me believing stability meant love. I wore a soft blue dress that night, the one he'd once said made my eyes look like calm water. I spent an hour curling my hair. Not because I was competing with anyone, because I wanted him to remember I existed. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The moment we walked through those ornate doors, he disappeared. Not physically. I could see him across the ballroom, drink in hand, leaning toward a woman in a red dress that probably required double-sided tape to stay on. Vivian, his favorite coworker. The one whose name came up too often at dinner, always with that casual tone that makes you question your own sanity. I stood near the dessert table, pretending to study tiny cakes while my chest tightened. 2 hours passed. He didn't look my direction once. Not when the first dance started. Not when they served dinner. Not when everyone laughed at the best man's speech about loyalty and forever. Then someone at his table, maybe a colleague I'd never met, asked the question that split my life in two. "So, are you married? Your wife must be gorgeous." He swirled his whiskey, smirked, and said it loud enough for 3 tables to hear. "Not really. It doesn't count when she's not interesting." The laughter that followed could have shattered glass. Vivian threw her head back, hand on his arm. Another coworker slapped the table. Someone nearby choked on champagne from laughing so hard. The room became a chorus of people who thought my humiliation was hilarious. I was half hidden behind a marble column, clutching a wine glass I hadn't taken a single sip from. My hands shook. My vision blurred. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because moving would mean admitting I'd heard it. Admitting I was the punchline. 8 years. 8 years of packing his lunches and managing our bills. 8 years of taking care of his mother when she got sick, driving 3 hours every weekend, so he didn't have to. 8 years of making myself smaller, quieter, easier, all so he could have peace. And peace is what I gave him. The kind that comes from one person swallowing everything while the other takes up all the space. When his eyes finally found mine across that ballroom, he didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't even blink. He just stared through me like I was furniture, like I was wallpaper, like I was nothing. Something inside me cracked that night. But something else? Something else started breathing. I didn't scream, didn't throw my drink, didn't cause the scene every woman in that room probably expected. I waited until dessert arrived, tiny lemon tarts with gold leaf that probably cost $50 each. I set down my fork, slipped my wedding ring off my finger, and placed it under the white linen napkin. Then I walked out. The night air hit my face like cold water. My phone buzzed, texts from people who'd witnessed it, messages from friends asking if I was okay. I ignored every single one. I called a taxi and stood under a street lamp, watching my breath fog in the October cold. When I got home, I packed one suitcase. Just clothes and essentials. The rest, the house, the furniture, the joint bank account, could rot for all I cared. He stumbled in near midnight, smelling like perfume that wasn't mine and whiskey that was definitely his. His tie hung loose. His shirt was untucked. He looked confused to see me awake. "Where'd you go?" he slurred. "You missed the bouquet toss." I zipped the suitcase shut. I was finding my self-respect. He laughed. Actually laughed. You're overreacting. It was a joke, Reina. Everyone thought it was funny. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I was staring at a stranger. That's the problem, I whispered. Everyone laughed, including you. I walked out that door with my suitcase and my dignity. He didn't follow, didn't call my name, didn't even get up from the couch. That was the last night he'd ever see me as his wife. Have you ever been humiliated by someone who promised to protect you? Have you ever stood silent while your heart shattered in public? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your voice matters here. The studio apartment smelled like old paint and regret. One room, peeling wallpaper. A window that overlooked a parking lot where someone's car alarm went off every night at 3 a.m. But it was mine. Every crack in the ceiling, every squeaky floorboard mine. I moved in 3 days after the wedding. Took only what fit in my car. Left behind the townhouse we'd bought together. The garden I'd planted. The life I'd watered for 8 years while he forgot I existed. The first week was the hardest. Not because I missed him. Because I kept waiting to miss him and nothing came. Just silence. The kind that doesn't hurt, it breathes. I got a job at a flower shop 2 blocks away. Miller's Florals. The owner was a woman in her 60s named Dorothy who asked 0 questions when I showed up looking for work. She handed me an apron and said, "You look like someone who needs to be around living things." She was right. Every morning I arrived before dawn. Trimmed stems. Arranged bouquets. Learned that roses bruise easy if you're not gentle, that lilies smell like funerals until you get used to them, that some flowers only bloom once before they die. I thought about that a lot. The blooming once part. Customers came and went. Anniversary bouquets. Birthday arrangements. Apology flowers. Those were always roses, always red, always bought by men who looked uncomfortable holding them. I wondered if any of those women would accept the flowers. If they'd forgive. If they'd stay. I wondered if I would have stayed if he'd bought me flowers instead of humiliating me. The answer came quick. No. Because flowers die. And I was done being decorative. At night, I sat on the floor of my apartment. Couldn't afford furniture yet and sketched. Something I hadn't done since college. Back when I thought I'd be an artist. Back before I became someone's wife and forgot I was supposed to be someone first. I drew faces mostly. Women's faces. Strong jawlines and tired eyes. The kind of faces you see on people who've survived something but won't talk about it. My phone rang constantly those first few weeks. Him. Always him. I never answered. Let it go to voicemail. Deleted the messages without listening. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. I pressed play. Reina, come on. This is ridiculous. You're throwing away 8 years over a stupid joke? Everyone's asking where you are. I look like an idiot. Delete. Next message. Fine. Stay gone. But you're still my wife legally, so don't think you can just. Delete. Next message. I talked to a lawyer. If you want a divorce, it's gonna cost you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Cost me what? The nothing I had? The dignity he'd already taken? 3 months passed. I stopped checking my phone. Stopped flinching when I heard his name. Stopped replaying that wedding moment in my head late at night. Instead, I replayed something else. Something Dorothy said one afternoon while we were closing up the shop. "You know what the difference is between a weed and a flower?" she asked, sweeping rose petals into a dustpan. I shook my head. "Placement," she said. "A rose in a garden is beautiful. A rose in a cornfield is a problem. Doesn't mean the rose changed. Just means it was in the wrong place." I went home that night and cried for the first time since leaving. Not sad tears. Relieved ones. Because I finally understood. I wasn't uninteresting. I was just planted in the wrong life. But here's the thing about leaving. It's not just about walking out the door. It's about staying gone when every part of you wants to go back. When the loneliness gets loud. When you wonder if maybe you overreacted. When you start thinking that humiliation is better than being alone. I stayed gone anyway. Then one morning, for months after I left, a letter arrived. Cream-colored envelope. Fancy script. Return address from a law firm I'd never heard of. I almost threw it away. Thought it was something from him. Divorce papers, maybe. Or a bill. But something made me open it. Inside was a single page. Typed. Professional. Cold in the way legal documents always are. Dear Ms. Holt, we regret to inform you of the passing of your grandmother, Eleanor Holt. As per her last will and testament, you are requested to attend a reading at our offices on. I stopped reading. Sat down on my apartment floor. Stared at the wall. My grandmother. The one my husband never wanted to visit. The one he called old-fashioned and out of touch. The one who sent me birthday cards every year with $20 inside and a note that always said the same thing. Don't forget who you are. She was gone. And I hadn't even known she was sick. The appointment was scheduled for the following week. I took the day off work. Wore the only professional outfit I still owned, black pants and a white blouse that needed ironing but would have to do. The law office was downtown. Glass doors. Marble floors. The kind of place that makes you feel poor just walking through it. A receptionist led me to a conference room where a man in his 50s sat behind a mahogany desk. He stood when I entered. Shook my hand. His grip was firm but kind. Ms. Holt, thank you for coming. I'm Thomas Brennan. I handled your grandmother's estate. I nodded. Sat down. Prepared myself for whatever sentimental item she'd left me. Maybe her wedding ring. Maybe the china set she always talked about. He opened a folder. Slid papers across the desk. Your grandmother left you everything. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? He smiled, the kind of smile that says he's done this before and knows what's coming. The house in Waverly, the vineyard in Ashford, and all associated investment accounts. My hands went numb. I don't understand. Your grandmother was a very private woman, he said. Most of the family didn't know the extent of her holdings. She wanted it that way. He slid another paper toward me. A number at the bottom. So many zeros I had to count them twice. $3.8 million. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. That can't be right, I whispered. It's right, he said gently. You're a very wealthy woman, Miss Holt. I sat there. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process. The same man who told a room full of people I wasn't interesting had once said we couldn't afford a weekend trip. Couldn't afford a second car. Couldn't afford anything that didn't directly benefit him. And here I was, holding papers that said I'd never need anyone's permission again. He laughed as I zipped my suitcase. He didn't realize laughter was the sound of me closing the door forever. If you've ever walked away from someone who didn't deserve you, hit that like button. You're not alone in this. The house in Waverly sat on 4 acres of land that smelled like pine trees and forgiveness. I didn't visit it right away. Couldn't. The idea of owning something that big, that real, felt like a joke the universe was playing. But 6 weeks after the lawyer's office, I drove out there. 2-hour drive through back roads and small towns where everyone waves even if they don't know you. The kind of America that still exists if you know where to look. The house appeared around a bend. White columns, wraparound porch, windows that caught sunlight like they were showing off. My grandmother's house. Now mine. I parked in the gravel driveway. Sat there for 10 minutes before I could make myself get out. A part of me expected someone to show up and say there'd been a mistake. That I wasn't supposed to be here. That girls like me don't inherit houses like this. But nobody came. Just wind through the trees and birds singing like this was normal. Inside, everything was exactly how I remembered from childhood visits. Hardwood floors that creaked in all the right places. A kitchen with a farmhouse sink and windows over the counter. Furniture covered in white sheets like ghosts, waiting to be remembered. I walked through every room slowly. Touched the walls. Opened closets. Found boxes of old photographs. My grandmother as a young woman, strong-jawed and unsmiling in that way women used to be before society told them to look pleasant. In the master bedroom, I found a letter on the nightstand. My name on the envelope, in her handwriting. My hands shook opening it. Raina, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I was tired. But I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you. I saw how small you made yourself around that man. how quiet you became. I didn't say anything because you weren't ready to hear it. But now you are. This house isn't just wood and nails. It's proof that you come from women who survived. Women who built. Women who didn't need permission to be powerful. Don't waste it. Don't waste yourself. Love, Grandma Eleanor. I cried sitting on that bed. Not sad tears. Grateful ones.
Because she saw me.
Even when I couldn't see myself. I moved into the Waverly house 2 months later. Left the studio apartment without looking back. Dorothy threw me a going-away party at the flower shop. Just the two of us. Cheap wine and leftover roses. You're gonna do something good with all this, she said. I can feel it.
I didn't know what yet.
But she was right about the feeling. The vineyard in Ashford was different. Rows and rows of grapevines on rolling hills that looked like something from a painting. I hired a property manager, a guy named Carlos who knew more about grapes than I'd ever learn. Your grandmother, she was smart, he said, walking me through the rows. Didn't just grow grapes. Grew legacy. Legacy. That word stuck with me. I started thinking about what I wanted mine to be. Not money. Not property. Something that mattered. Something that would have made my grandmother nod in approval. Meanwhile, my phone stayed quiet. No calls from him. No messages. Radio silence. Until it wasn't. 3 months after I moved into the Waverly house, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Raina. His voice. Softer than I remembered. Almost nervous. It's me. I didn't respond. Just listened. I've been trying to reach you, he continued. I know you're mad, but we should talk. Face to face. We built something together. 8 years doesn't just disappear.
Built something.
As if I wasn't the only one holding the hammer. How'd you get this number? I asked. Doesn't matter. What matters is. It matters to me. Silence on his end. Then, your friend Sarah gave it to me. She thought. Sarah doesn't speak for me, I said. Mental note. Sarah and I were done. He sighed. The kind of sigh that says he's about to pretend to be vulnerable. Look, I messed up at the wedding. I was drunk. I said something stupid. But you left without even giving me a chance to explain. Explain. As if there was an explanation for public humiliation that would make it okay. I don't need an explanation, I said. I need you to lose this number. Raina, come on. Don't be. Don't be what? I interrupted. Don't be uninteresting? The silence that followed was satisfying. I didn't mean it like that, he finally said. You meant it exactly like that. You just didn't expect me to hear it. More silence.
Then his voice changed.
Less apologetic. More calculating. So, I heard about your inheritance, he said. Casual. Like he was commenting on the weather. That's great. Really? Your grandmother was always. Stop, I said. Stop what? Whatever you're about to say next. The answer is no. You don't even know what I was gonna say. I know exactly what you were gonna say. And the answer is no. He laughed. Not the drunk laugh from the wedding. A bitter one. You've changed. You're right, I said. I stopped being the woman who believed your lies. I hung up, blocked the number, sat on my grandmother's porch, and watched the sun set over land that was mine. For the first time in 8 years, I didn't feel small. I didn't know it then, but the universe was about to repay my silence with thunder. Have you ever had someone try to come back into your life after they destroyed it? What did you do? Comment below. I want to hear your story. The call from him should have been the end of it. Block the number. Move on. Build the life my grandmother wanted for me. But men like him don't take no for an answer. They just get creative. 2 weeks after I hung up on him, flowers showed up at the Waverly house. 24 red roses. The kind he never bought me when we were married. The card read, I miss you. Let's talk. Please. I gave them to Carlos. He seemed confused but took them anyway. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. 3 pages of apologies and memories and, remember when we were happy? None of it true. All of it manipulation. I burned it in the fireplace. Then came the voicemails on the landline. The house had an old rotary phone in the kitchen that actually worked. He must have gotten the number from public records. Raina, I know you're there. Just pick up. I'm not trying to cause problems.
I just want to talk. Delete.
This is ridiculous. You're my wife. Legally. You can't just ignore me forever. Delete.
Fine.
You want to play it this way? My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything you inherited. So you can talk to me, or you can talk to him. That one made me laugh. Because my lawyer, the one Mr. Brennan recommended, had already explained how inheritance works. Money left directly to me and will didn't count as marital property. He couldn't touch it. But he didn't know that yet. I spent those weeks planning. Not revenge. Purpose. My grandmother's letter kept playing in my head. Women who built. Women who didn't need permission. I wanted to build something. Something that mattered. Something that would help women who'd been where I was, made small, made quiet, made to believe they didn't matter. The idea came to me one morning while I was walking the property. The Waverly house had 6 bedrooms. A huge kitchen.
Space.
So much space. What if it became a place for women to heal? To restart? To remember they were more than someone's punchline? I called Mr. Brennan that afternoon. I want to turn the house into a retreat, I told him. For women. Divorced women. Widows. Single mothers. Anyone who needs a place to figure out what comes next. He was quiet for a moment. Then, that's a beautiful idea, Ms. Holt. Can I afford it?
He laughed.
Ms. Holt, you can afford anything you want. The paperwork took 6 weeks.
Permits.
Inspections. Insurance. Hiring staff, a counselor, a cook, a property manager. Renovations to make the bedrooms more private, the common areas more welcoming. I named it Haven House. Simple.
Clear.
Exactly what it was. The day we opened, 3 women showed up. One was freshly divorced with 2 kids. One was a widow whose husband had left her nothing but debt. One was young, mid-20s, running from an engagement that would have killed her slowly. I gave them each a room, a journal, a key that was theirs to keep even after they left. You're safe here, I told them. And you're not uninteresting. You're unforgettable. The young one cried when I said that. Later she told me why. Her ex-fiancé used to call her boring. Said she had no personality. Said he was doing her a favor by marrying her. I knew that feeling. Word spread fast. Local news picked it up. Heiress turns estate into women's refuge. Then regional outlets. Then a piece in a women's magazine that went viral online. The applications started flooding in. More women than I had space for. Women from across the state. Across the country. All of them carrying stories that sounded different but felt the same. Haven House expanded. I bought 2 more properties nearby. Hired more staff. Started offering workshops, financial literacy, art therapy, job training. Everything they needed to rebuild. And somewhere in all of that, I forgot to be angry. Forgot to feel small. Forgot that a man at a wedding had once told a room full of strangers I didn't count. Because I was too busy proving him wrong. Then one afternoon, for months after Haven House opened, I was in the garden planting roses with 2 of the residents when my phone rang. Unknown number. Again. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to. Ms. Holt. A woman's voice. Professional. This is Jennifer Marks from Channel 7 News. We're doing a feature on Haven House and wondered if you'd be available for an interview. I agreed. The interview aired 2 weeks later. 5-minute segment about the retreat, about my grandmother's legacy, about giving women a second chance. They used my full name. Showed the house. Mentioned the vineyard in Ashford. I didn't think about him seeing it. Didn't consider that he'd be watching. But of course he was. Because 3 days after the interview aired, he showed up at Haven House. I was in the kitchen when I heard his voice at the front door. Talking to Maria, the property manager. Saying he was my husband. Saying he had every right to be there. My blood went cold. But I didn't panic. Didn't hide. I walked to the front door. Stood in the frame. Looked at him for the first time in almost a year. He looked terrible. Thinner. Older. His suit didn't fit right anymore, hung loose around the shoulders like he'd shrunk inside it. "Rena," he said, relief in his voice, like he'd been searching for me. "I saw the interview. This place is incredible. You need to leave," I said. His face fell. "I just want to talk. 5 minutes."
No.
"Rena, please. I lost my job. Vivian left. Everything's falling apart. I need help." There it was. The real reason.
Not apology.
Not remorse.
Need.
I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered that ballroom. The laughter. The way he looked through me like I was invisible. "There's a volunteer position here," I said calmly. "We need someone to help with dishes, laundry, cleaning. It doesn't pay. But you'd be around people who understand what it's like to be treated like you don't matter." His face twisted. "That's not what I meant." "I know," I said. "But it's all I have to offer you now."
He stared at me,
Opened his mouth,
closed it.
then turned and walked back to his car, an old sedan I didn't recognize. Not the BMW he used to drive. I watched him leave. Felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just peace. Maria appeared beside me. "You okay?" I nodded.
Yeah.
"I really am." For the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone's permission to be powerful. When someone who broke you shows up asking for help, what do you owe them? Nothing? Everything? Let me know in the comments. He didn't stay gone. That's the thing about people who see you as an option. They keep coming back until you become a boundary they can't cross. A week after he showed up at Haven House, letters started arriving. Not to me. To my lawyer. Formal. Legal.
Desperate.
Mr. Brennan called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of a workshop, teaching 5 women how to build a basic budget when you're starting from zero. "Ms. Holt, we need to talk about your husband's filings." I excused myself. Walked into the hallway. "What filings?" "He's claiming financial hardship. Says the inheritance should be considered marital property since you were married when your grandmother passed. He's requesting spousal support and a division of assets." I leaned against the wall. Closed my eyes. "Can he do that?" "He can try," Mr. Brennan said. "But he won't win. Inheritance is separate property in this state. And you'd already left him before you even knew about the money. There's no case here." "So, why is he doing this?" "Because he's desperate. And desperate people file desperate lawsuits." The court date was set for 6 weeks out. I hired the best divorce attorney money could buy, a woman named Patricia Chun who had a reputation for destroying men who underestimated her. "He's going to try to make you look bad," she warned during our first meeting. "He'll say you abandoned the marriage, that you're vindictive, that you're keeping his share out of spite." "Let him," I said. She smiled.
Good.
I like clients with spines. Those 6 weeks were strange. Haven House kept growing. More women. More stories. More healing. But underneath it all was this low hum of dread, the knowledge that I'd have to see him again. Sit across from him in a courtroom. Watch him try to take what wasn't his. Sarah called during that time. My old friend. The one who'd given him my number. "Rena, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he'd."
Save it, I said.
"He told me you two were working things out. That you wanted to talk, but were too proud to reach out first." "And you believed him?" Silence. Then, quietly, "I'm sorry." I hung up. Some friendships don't survive growth. And I was done making myself small to keep people comfortable. The night before court, I couldn't sleep. Lay in my grandmother's bed, my bed now, and stared at the ceiling. Thought about what I'd say, if given the chance. Thought about walking into that courtroom and facing the man who'd made me feel worthless. But when morning came, I realized I didn't need to say anything. My life was the statement. Haven House was the statement. The woman I'd become was the statement. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, chairs that squeaked when you moved. He sat at a table with his lawyer, a tired-looking man in a suit that had seen better days. When I walked in, he looked up. Our eyes met. He looked away first. The hearing lasted 2 hours. His lawyer argued that 8 years of marriage entitled him to something, that I'd left without warning, that the inheritance should be split because marriages are partnerships. Patricia destroyed every argument, showed the timeline, how I'd left months before my grandmother died, how inheritance law works, how he'd publicly humiliated me at the wedding and multiple witnesses could testify to it. Then she played her final card. Your Honor, my client has screenshots of text messages Mr. Holt sent after learning of the inheritance. Messages that show his only interest was financial. I'd like to submit them as evidence. The judge reviewed them, looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Holt, did you send these messages? He shifted in his seat. I was going through a hard time. That's not what I asked. Yes, he said quietly. The judge set the papers down. I've seen enough. The inheritance is Ms. Holt's separate property. The petition for spousal support is denied. The request for division of assets is denied. Mr. Holt, you're ordered to cover all court costs. We're done here. The gavel came down. It was over. We walked out into the hallway, me, Patricia, him, and his lawyer.
He looked like he wanted to say something.
Opened his mouth. But Patricia stepped between us. My client has nothing to say to you, she said firmly. And if you contact her again, we'll file for a restraining order. Are we clear? He nodded, walked away without another word. I watched him disappear down the courthouse steps. Felt something lift off my shoulders, something heavy I'd been carrying so long I forgot it was there. How do you feel? Patricia asked. I thought about it. Really thought. Free. On the drive back to Waverly, I stopped at Dorothy's flower shop. She was arranging tulips when I walked in. How'd it go? She asked. I won. She smiled. Of course you did. You were already winning before you walked in there. I bought flowers that day. Not roses. Sunflowers. The kind that turn toward light no matter what. That night at Haven House, I gathered all the residents in the common room. 15 women in various stages of healing. Some scared. Some angry. Some just tired. I want to tell you something, I said. Today I went to court against a man who tried to take what wasn't his. And I won. Not because I had better lawyers. Not because I had money. But because I finally understood something my grandmother tried to teach me. They waited. You can't take what someone's already reclaimed. And you can't diminish what's already whole. One of the younger women, the one who'd been engaged to a man who called her boring, raised her hand. How do you get there? To feeling whole again. I thought about the wedding, the laughter, the ring under the napkin, the studio apartment, the flower shop, my grandmother's letter, Haven House, all of it. You stop waiting for someone to apologize, I said, and you start living like you already deserve better. The room was quiet. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then all of them. I didn't cry.
But I wanted to.
He said I'd regret it. He had no idea. Regret was his burden to bear, not mine. If you've ever had to fight for what's yours, drop a like. And if you're still fighting, keep going. You're closer than you think. Haven House became something I never planned. Not just a retreat. A movement. Within a year, we'd helped over 200 women.
Some stayed a week.
Some stayed months. All of them left different than they arrived. Lighter, stronger, like they'd remembered something they'd forgotten about themselves. We added programs. Financial literacy workshops every Tuesday. Art therapy on Thursdays. Job training. Resume building. Childcare for the mothers. Everything they needed to stop surviving and start building. The vineyard in Ashford started generating real income. Carlos expanded production. We bottled our own wine. Called it Second Bloom. Every bottle sold funded another woman's stay at Haven House. The irony wasn't lost on me. My grandmother's grapes were now helping women my husband would have ignored. Media attention grew. More interviews. Magazine features. A podcast about women reclaiming their lives after loss. I said yes to most of it. Not for attention. For reach. Because somewhere out there was a woman standing in a ballroom, hearing laughter, thinking she deserved it. I wanted her to know she didn't. One afternoon in late spring, I was in the garden with 3 residents planting vegetables when Maria came outside looking strange. Reina, someone's here to see you.
Who?
She hesitated. His mother. I stood up, brushed dirt off my knees. Tell her I'm busy.
I did.
She says she'll wait. I found her on the front porch, sitting in the rocking chair like she belonged there. She looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Smaller somehow. Helen, I said. No warmth in my voice. She stood. Reina, thank you for seeing me. I didn't say you could stay. She nodded.
Accepted that.
I won't take much of your time. I wanted to apologize. That caught me off guard. For what? For my son. For what he did to you. For what he said. Her voice cracked. I raised him better than that. Or I thought I did. I crossed my arms. Waited. When you used to visit, when you drive 3 hours every weekend to take care of me when I was sick, I saw how he treated you. How he never thanked you. How he took you for granted. She wiped her eyes. I should have said something then. I didn't. And I'm sorry. The apology sat between us like something fragile. Where is he now? I asked. Living with his sister. Working at a car dealership. He's not doing well. Good, I said. Then softer. I don't mean that. No, she interrupted. You do mean it. And you should. He destroyed something beautiful because he was too blind to see it. She reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope. This is for Haven House. It's not much, but it's what I have. I took it. Opened it. A check for $5,000. Helen, you don't have to. I want to. What you're doing here, it matters. You matter. You always did. She left after that. Didn't ask to see the house. Didn't ask for forgiveness beyond what she'd already said. Just walked to her car and drove away. I stood on that porch holding her check and realized something. Sometimes closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from unexpected places. From people brave enough to acknowledge what they couldn't fix. That summer, Haven House expanded again. 2 more properties. A partnership with local businesses for job placement. A scholarship fund for women who wanted to go back to school. I hired a full-time staff of 12. Counselors. Life coaches. A chef who taught cooking classes. A yoga instructor who taught breathing exercises for panic attacks. Everything they needed to rebuild from the inside out. One evening, I was in my office doing paperwork when someone knocked. Come in. It was Rebecca, one of the first women who'd stayed at Haven House. She'd been here 8 months ago, fresh from a divorce, 2 kids, no job. I got it, she said, holding up a paper. Got what?
The job.
Regional manager. 6-figure salary. Benefits. Everything. I stood up, hugged her. Rebecca, that's incredible. She pulled back, eyes wet. I couldn't have done this without you. Without this place. A year ago, I thought my life was over. Now, she laughed. Now I'm about to out-earn my ex-husband. That's not why you did it though, I said. She smiled.
No.
I did it because I remembered I was capable.
You reminded me.
Moments like that made everything worth it. Every legal battle. Every sleepless night. Every time I doubted whether I was doing enough. I was doing exactly what my grandmother wanted. Building legacy. Creating space. Proving that the women who survive don't just heal, they help others do the same. But success brings visibility. And visibility brings attention you don't always want. 3 weeks later, I was at the grocery store, normal Saturday afternoon, buying produce and bread when I saw him. Standing in the cereal aisle, looking at boxes like they held answers.
He saw me at the same time. Froze.
For a second, neither of us moved. Just 2 people who used to share a life, now strangers in a grocery store. He looked worse than at the courthouse. Tired. Worn down. Like life had finally caught up with him. Reina, he said quietly. I nodded. Kept walking.
Wait, he called.
I stopped. Didn't turn around. I'm sorry, he said. For everything. I was wrong. I turned then, looked at him fully. You were wrong about a lot of things. But mostly, you were wrong about me. He opened his mouth, closed it, had nothing to say. I hope you figure out who you are without someone to stand on, I said. Then I walked away. That night, I sat on my grandmother's porch, my porch now, and thought about forgiveness. Whether I owed it to him, whether holding on to anger was hurting me more than him. The answer was complicated. I didn't forgive him because he deserved it. I forgave him because I deserved peace. And peace doesn't come from revenge. It comes from knowing you no longer need anything from the person who hurt you. Not their apology, not their validation, not their regret. Just space to be whole without them. And just when Haven House made headlines again, his name came crawling back into my world. But this time, I was ready. Would you forgive someone who publicly humiliated you if they apologized years later? Or is some damage permanent? Let me know below. The phone call came on a Wednesday, middle of the afternoon. I was in a meeting with my staff planning the next quarter when my personal line rang. I almost ignored it, but the number looked familiar. This is Rena. Ms. Holt, this is Officer Patricia Gomez with Hartford Police. Do you know a Daniel Holt? My stomach dropped. He's my ex-husband. What happened? He was brought in last night. Public intoxication. Disorderly conduct. He listed you as his emergency contact. I closed my eyes. He shouldn't have. Ma'am, he's asking if you'll post bail. It's $500. $500. An amount that used to feel impossible. Now it was what I spent on groceries, without thinking. No, I said. Silence on the line. Ma'am, I'm not posting his bail. Is there anything else? He said to tell you, she paused. He said to tell you he's sorry, and he has nowhere else to go. Then he should have thought about that before, I said. Hung up. My hands shook. Not from anger. From the weight of that moment. The finality. Because saying no to him, really, truly no, felt like closing a door I'd been holding open without realizing it. Maria knocked on my office door an hour later. You okay? You've been in here a while. Yeah, I said. I'm good. Just processing. She sat down across from me. Want to talk about it? I told her about the call, about the bail, about saying no. She nodded slowly. You made the right choice. Then why do I feel guilty? Because you're a good person. And good people feel guilty even when they shouldn't. She leaned forward. But let me ask you something. If one of the women here, if Rebecca or Sarah or Jen, if one of them called you and said their ex-husband was in jail asking for bail money, what would you tell them? I didn't hesitate. I'd tell them to let him sit. Exactly. I laughed. Dry. Tired. Why is it so easy to give good advice, but so hard to take it? Because we love ourselves last, she said. But you're learning. Slowly. You're learning. 2 days later, he showed up at Haven House. I was in the kitchen with Denise, our chef, planning the week's meals when I heard shouting at the front gate. Security cameras showed him standing outside. Hair messy, clothes wrinkled, looking desperate. Let me in, he yelled. I know she's in there. Rena. I called security. But before they arrived, I walked outside. Stood on the other side of the gate. You need to leave, I said calmly. I spent 2 nights in jail because of you. No. You spent 2 nights in jail because of your choices. He grabbed the gate bars. I lost everything, Rena. My job. My apartment. Everything. And you're living in a mansion helping strangers while you're dealing with consequences, I interrupted. Welcome to adulthood. I'm your husband, ex-husband, and barely that. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. That stopped him. He let go of the gate. What? You didn't read the papers? The ones my lawyer sent? We're divorced. Have been. You just never bothered to show up to court. His face went pale. You can't just. I can. And I did. Security arrived then. 2 men. Professional. Calm. They asked him to leave. When he refused, they called the police. I watched from the porch as they put him in the car. He looked back once. Not angry, just broken. A part of me felt sad for him, but it was a distant sadness. The kind you feel for strangers in bad situations. Not the sharp, personal kind. Not anymore. That evening, I gathered the residents like I'd done before. 17 women this time. All of them at different stages of healing. Today someone from my past showed up demanding things he had no right to, I said. And I want you all to know, you don't owe anyone access to your peace. Not your ex-husband. Not your family. Not your friends. Peace is yours to give and yours to protect. One of the newer residents, a woman named Carla, who just left a 20-year marriage, raised her hand. But what if you feel guilty? Then you feel guilty, I said. Guilt doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. Sometimes it just means you made a hard one. The room was quiet. Then someone started clapping, slowly at first. Then everyone joined. I didn't feel like a hero. Didn't feel brave. Just felt like someone who'd finally learned to stop setting herself on fire to keep other people warm. A week later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name and Haven House on the envelope. Inside was a single page. His handwriting.
Messy. Rushed.
Raina, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know, you were never boring. You were never uninteresting. You were everything I was too stupid to see. I hope you build something beautiful. I hope you're happy. I hope you forget I exist. Daniel. I read it twice. Folded it. Put it in a box labeled Lessons. Then I went outside to the garden where the wind smelled like lavender and freedom and whispered to the sky, I already did. He walked away, and for the first time, his silence was the apology I'd been waiting for. Have you ever had someone realize your worth only after they lost you? How did it feel? Drop your thoughts below. Haven House turned 2 years old on a Sunday in October.
Same month as that wedding. Same season.
Different life. We threw a celebration. Not fancy. Just the residents, staff, and a few donors who believed in what we were building. Tables in the backyard. String lights. Food from Denise's kitchen that smelled like home. Rebecca came back for it. Brought her kids. They ran through the grass while she told me about her promotion. About buying her first house. About finally feeling like herself again. I'm not the same person who walked through those doors, she said, watching her daughter chase butterflies. That woman was scared. Broken. Didn't know if she'd survive. And now? I asked. She smiled. Now I know I'm not just surviving. I'm building. By sunset, everyone gathered in the common room. I stood in front of them, women from different backgrounds, different ages, different stories, all connected by one thing. They'd all been told they weren't enough. And they'd all proven that wrong. 2 years ago, I inherited this house, I said. But houses don't matter. What matters is what you do with them.
Who you let in.
What you build inside. I looked around the room. Saw faces I'd watched transform. Saw strength where there used to be fear.
Saw hope where there used to be nothing.
You all taught me something, I continued. That healing isn't linear. It's messy. It's ugly sometimes. But it's possible. And watching you all become who you were always meant to be. That's the real inheritance. Not money. Not property. Legacy. Someone in the back started clapping. Then everyone joined. And for the second time since opening Haven House, I cried in front of them. But these weren't sad tears. They were grateful ones. Because I'd spent so long thinking I was saving them. Turned out, we were saving each other. The following month, a publisher reached out. They wanted me to write a book. My story. Haven House. The journey from humiliation to healing. I said no at first. Didn't think I had anything worth saying. But Maria changed my mind. You know how many women are out there right now standing in a ballroom listening to someone mock them? She said. You know how many are driving home in silence wondering if they'll ever matter? They need to hear this. They need to know what's possible. So I wrote it. Took 6 months. Hardest thing I'd ever done. Because writing about pain means reliving it. Every chapter felt like opening an old wound just to show people it healed. But I did it. Called it not interesting. How I built a life after being the punchline. The book released in March. Made several bestseller lists. Not because it was perfectly written. Because it was honest.
Raw. Real.
Women reached out from everywhere. Emails. Letters. Social media messages. All of them saying the same thing in different ways. I thought I was alone. Thank you for showing me I'm not. One letter came from a woman in Ohio. Her husband had humiliated her at a company party. She'd packed a bag that night. Read my book 3 days later. Started divorce proceedings by the end of the week. You saved my life, she wrote. Not because you told me what to do, because you showed me it was possible. I kept that letter on my desk. Read it whenever I doubted whether any of this mattered. Haven House kept expanding. For properties now. Partnerships with women's shelters across 3 states. A wait list of over 300 women. We couldn't help everyone, but we helped who we could. And the ones we helped went on to help others. That's how legacy works.
Not top-down. Outward.
One afternoon in April, I was working in the garden, my favorite form of therapy, when a car pulled up. Expensive.
New.
A woman got out. Mid-40s. Dressed sharp. Confident. Are you Raina Holt? She asked. I am. She extended her hand. I'm Dr. Michelle Torres. I run a women's recovery center in California. I read your book. I want to partner with you. We talked for 2 hours. She had resources. I had experience. Together, we could build something national. A network of Haven houses. Different cities. Same mission. Women need this everywhere, she said. Not just here. Everywhere. We signed papers 3 months later. Haven House became Haven Collective, a nonprofit with funding, structure, and reach we'd never had before. By the end of the year, we'd open locations in 5 states. Each one designed like the original, safe, warm, focused on healing. Each one filled with women who'd been told they didn't matter. I traveled between locations.
Spoke at events.
Trained new staff. Met hundreds of women whose stories sounded like mine, but ended differently. Better. And somewhere in all of that, I realized something. I'd spent so long trying to prove him wrong, to show the world I was interesting, valuable, worth claiming. But I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Because I already knew. Late one night, I was alone in my office at the Waverly House going through emails when I found one from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line. You were right. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Raina, this is Daniel. I don't expect you to respond. I just needed to say this. You were right. About everything. I threw away the best thing in my life, because I was too insecure to see it. I see it now. Too late. But I see it. I hope you're happy. I hope you never think about me. You deserve that.
D.
I read it once. Closed the laptop. Walked outside to the porch. The stars were bright that night. Clearer than usual. I stood there breathing in the cold air and realized I didn't feel anger. Didn't feel satisfaction. Didn't feel anything toward him at all. Just peace. The kind that comes when someone who hurt you finally stops mattering. And just when I thought my story was complete, an envelope arrived that would remind me. Some chapters close so new ones can begin. If this story has inspired you, drop a like. And if you're rebuilding right now, keep going. The best part is still ahead. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning in November. Cream-colored. Expensive paper. My name written in elegant calligraphy. I knew what it was before I opened it. A wedding invitation. His wedding invitation. I stood in the kitchen holding it like it might explode. Part of me wanted to throw it away. Burn it.
Pretend I never saw it.
But I opened it anyway. Mr. Daniel Holt and Ms. Amber Chen request the honor of your presence. I stopped reading. Looked at the date. 6 weeks away. Looked at the venue. The same place. The exact same ballroom where he'd humiliated me 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Maria walked in carrying groceries. Saw my face. What's wrong? I handed her the invitation. She read it. Looked up. You're kidding. Nope. The same venue? The same venue. She set the groceries down. Are you going? That was the question, wasn't it? Should I go? Could I go? Would going mean I'd moved on or that I was still stuck? I don't know, I said honestly. For days, I turned it over in my mind. Asked myself what going would accomplish, what staying home would prove. Then one night during a group session at Haven House, one of the residents, a woman named Kim who'd left an abusive marriage, shared something that changed my perspective. My ex got remarried last month, she said. And you know what? I was happy for him. Not because I wanted him back. Because his moving on meant he'd finally leave me alone. His happiness meant my freedom. That hit different. Because I realized I didn't care if he got married. Didn't care if he was happy or miserable or anything in between. He was a chapter I'd closed. And closed chapters don't need rereading. I RSVP'd no. Didn't send a gift. Didn't send congratulations. Just checked the box that said, regretfully declines, and mailed it back. Then I did something better. I planned a celebration. Not for his wedding. For mine. Not a wedding to another person. A wedding to myself. To the life I'd built. To the woman I'd become. I invited everyone who mattered. The Haven House residents, past and present. My staff. Dorothy, from the flower shop. Even Helen, his mother, who'd apologized and donated. We held it at the Waverly House. Same weekend as his wedding. But this wasn't about him.
It was about me.
About us. About every woman who'd been broken and decided to rebuild. We decorated the backyard with lights. Set up tables. Denise made a cake that said, "Here's to new beginnings." When everyone arrived, I stood on the porch and looked at the faces staring back at me. Women who'd walked through hell and came out holding flowers. Women who'd been told they weren't enough and proved everyone wrong. 3 years ago, I was humiliated in a ballroom by someone who was supposed to love me, I said. He told a room full of people I didn't count that I wasn't interesting. The crowd was silent. For a long time, I believed him. I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was boring. Maybe I wasn't worth claiming. I paused. Looked around. But then something happened. I left. And in leaving, I found out who I was without someone standing on me. I found out I wasn't boring. I was just surrounded by people too shallow to see depth. Someone cheered. Then another. Then the whole backyard erupted. So tonight, we're not celebrating his wedding. We're celebrating ours. We're celebrating every woman here who chose herself. Who walked away. Who rebuilt. Who refused to stay small. I raise my glass. To new beginnings. To self-love. To never again letting someone else define our worth. Everyone raised their glasses. To new beginnings. We ate.
Danced. Laughed.
Shared stories. Kim talked about starting her own business. Rebecca talked about her kids thriving. A newer resident named Lisa talked about leaving her husband last month after reading my book. I kept thinking about what you said, Lisa told me. You're not the punchline. You're the story. That changed everything for me. By midnight, everyone had gone home except Maria and me. We sat on the porch steps looking at the stars. You know what's wild? Maria said. He's at some wedding right now thinking he's moved on. And you're here knowing you already did. Years ago. I smiled.
Yeah.
Does it bother you? That he's getting remarried? I thought about it. Really thought.
No.
Because his happiness doesn't erase mine. And my happiness doesn't require his misery. We're just separate now. The way we should have been from the start. She nodded. That's growth. That's exhausting is what it is. I laughed. The following week, I received a message from an unknown number. Just 2 words. Thank you. I knew it was from her. Amber. His new wife. Maybe she'd heard about Haven House. Maybe someone told her what happened at that first wedding. Maybe she just needed to know I wasn't a threat. I didn't respond. She didn't need my permission to marry him. And I didn't need her gratitude for stepping aside. Some chapters close quietly. No dramatic confrontation. No final showdown. Just space.
Distance. Peace.
A month later, I was featured in a national magazine. The woman who turned humiliation into healing. They interviewed me about Haven House, the book, the journey. One question stood out. Do you ever regret leaving? The reporter asked. Every day, I said. She looked surprised. I regret not leaving sooner. I finished. That quote went viral. Women everywhere shared it, added their own stories, created a movement around the idea that leaving isn't failure, it's courage. And somewhere in all of that noise, his wedding came and went.
I didn't think about it.
Didn't check social media. Didn't ask anyone who might know. Because for once, I didn't feel anger. I felt gratitude. Not for him. For what losing him taught me. That sometimes the best revenge isn't what you take from someone. It's what you become after they're gone. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt gratitude. Not for him, but for the woman I became without him. What would you do if your ex invited you to their wedding? Comment below. I want to hear your story. 5 years after that wedding. 5 years after the laughter. 5 years after I learned what humiliation tastes like. I'm sitting on the porch of the Waverly house, my house, watching the sun set over land that belongs to me. Not because someone gave it to me out of pity. Because my grandmother knew I'd need it.
Knew I'd use it right.
Haven Collective now operates in 12 states. We've helped over 3,000 women rebuild their lives. 3,000 women who were told they didn't matter and believed it until they found us. The book became a bestseller. Got optioned for a movie. I hired a writer who actually understood the story, not the revenge part, the rebirth part. Because that's what this always was. Not a story about a man who humiliated his wife. A story about a woman who refused to stay humiliated. Last month, I spoke at a conference. 5,000 women packed into a convention center. I told them about the wedding, about the laughter, about standing frozen behind that marble column thinking I deserved it. But here's what I learned. I said into the microphone. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you. Sometimes you have to leave. Even when it's scary. Even when it's hard. Even when everyone tells you you're overreacting. The applause lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, women lined up to talk to me, share their stories. Some were still in bad marriages. Some had just left. Some had been gone for years, but still carried the weight. One woman grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her face. I needed to hear this. My husband tells me I'm boring, that I'm lucky he stays. And I started believing him. I looked her in the eyes. You're not boring. You're not lucky he stays. You're unfortunate he's still there taking up space. She laughed through tears. I'm leaving tonight.
Good, I said.
And when you do, don't look back. I think about that woman sometimes. Wonder if she actually left. Hope she did. Hope she found her Haven house. Hope she remembered. She was never the problem. Dorothy from the flower shop passed away last year. Peacefully. In her sleep. At her funeral, I learned she'd left me the shop in her will. Because Raina knows what it means to help things grow, the letter said. I didn't sell it. Hired someone to run it. Used the profits to fund Haven House scholarships. Because Dorothy taught me something important. Sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones you expect. My grandmother's vineyard is thriving. Carlos runs it beautifully. We produce thousands of bottles a year now. Second Bloom. Wine is in stores across the country. Every bottle sold funds another woman's day. Another chance. Another story that ends differently. I never remarried.
People ask sometimes.
Don't you want to find love again? Maybe someday. But right now, I'm in love with my life. With my purpose. With the woman I became when I stopped waiting for someone else's permission to matter. Last week, I received a letter. From him. Forwarded through my lawyer, because I'd blocked every other way he could reach me. Inside was a single page. Handwritten. The kind of letter people write when they've finally run out of excuses. Raina, I know you'll never read this. But I need to write it anyway. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And I destroyed it because I was too insecure to see what I had. I see it now. I see you everywhere in articles, in interviews, in the work you're doing. And I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to be, but I am. You were never boring. You were never uninteresting. You were everything I was too broken to appreciate. I hope you're happy. I hope you never think about me. You deserve that. Daniel. I read it once, folded it carefully, walked outside to the garden where lavender grows wild and the wind smells like freedom. Then I did something I'd never done before. I forgave him, not because he deserved it, not because his apology was enough, but because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. I forgave him so I could be free.
Completely.
Finally.
Free.
I placed the letter in a box labeled Lessons, right next to the wedding invitation, right next to every reminder of who I used to be. Then I closed the box,
Put it in the attic.
and walked back into the sunlight. Because here's what I learned in 5 years. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about rebirth. It's about showing the world, and yourself, that the same person they mocked for being uninteresting became someone unforgettable. It's about building something so beautiful that their laughter becomes background noise. It's about waking up one day and realizing you don't need their apology anymore. You don't need their regret. You don't need anything from them at all. Because you already have everything that matters. I'm standing in my garden now, the one I planted with my own hands, watching roses bloom for the second time this year, listening to birds sing, breathing air that doesn't taste like betrayal. And I'm thinking about that woman in the blue dress standing behind a marble column 5 years ago. The one who heard laughter and thought she deserved it. I wish I could tell her what I know now. That she was never boring. She was surrounded by people too shallow to see depth. That the laughter wouldn't last forever. But her strength would. That walking away wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. That sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming unforgettable. So to every woman reading this, every woman standing in her own ballroom, hearing her own laughter, wondering if she'll survive, I want you to know something. You will survive. More than that, you'll thrive. Not because someone apologized, not because they realized what they lost, but because you realized what you're worth. And once you know that, once you really, truly know that, nobody can ever make you forget it again. You were never the punchline. You were always the story. And your story? It's just getting started. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because there are more stories like this coming. Stories of survival, of strength, of women who refuse to stay broken. Share this in the comments.
Tell us your story.
Inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Your voice matters. Your story matters. You matter. And I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, remember, you're not boring. You're just surrounded by people too shallow to see how deep you really are.